Professor Plimer, have you got all your Christmas shopping done?
Well, I'm a bit disappointed I didn't get the minutes and seconds, 61 days and X minutes and X seconds.
Yes.
Christmas shopping, I'm a little bit different. I travel a lot, and when I travel and I see something that grandkids, kids or wife might enjoy, I buy it. Yeah. So I have a stockpile tucked away.
Right.
At times, it gets found and raided.
Ah, yes. Yes, they better not know where the pile is.
Yes,
you've got to keep that quiet. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You never stop, do you? You're
well,
really...
when you've got as many creditors as me, you've just got to keep running.
Bless your heart. Tell me about what's going on up at Broken Hill. This power thing is quite extraordinary, isn't it?
Yes, I'm getting a lot of reports from people up there. Up there in a fortnight's time. There are 7 power stanchions on the power line from Wentworth to Broken Hill that were taken out in a mini tornado. Yeah. These are not uncommon in desert areas, so you just wonder about the design. Those 7 knocked out the power for Broken Hill and beyond because they now have lines from Broken Hill going as far north as Tibooburra. And what this has meant is that the 2 reserve generators in Broken Hill were there for a purpose. Now, only one of them worked. The other had been out of action since September. So there's restricted power, and the restrictions are between 5:30 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. You're obliged to minimise your power usage. So I don't know how you're going to look after babies and children and get the meal ready. Broken Hill now has power from diesel. The mines are closed because you need a lot of power for ventilation underground and for
What's
pumping.
That costing? That must be costing a fortune.
I don't know about the Rast mine, but I did hear from one of the Rast mine people that it's costing Perulia $250,000 a day. Now, they're dealing with a very skinny ore body at great depth at high cost, and this could be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Your biggest costs in Broken Hill mining are electricity. The second biggest cost is diesel, and the third biggest cost is labour. So it's now become quite serious. Workers at the mine have been sent on holidays. Well, they'll either go home and do gardening or go away. And it will take, they say, 7 weeks to get this fixed. Well, make that 15 weeks. And it's a situation that perhaps is from poor design or being a bit of a cheapskate in putting in the power line to Broken Hill, because Broken Hill used to have 2 big diesel power stations. The first, the Galena Street power station, created 240-volt, 50-phase power, and that was for the town. Yeah. Then they had a separate power station, and that was the CPS, the Central Power Station, owned by the mining companies, and that produced compressed air and electricity, but it wasn't 50-phase, it was 40-phase. And that was for a good reason. It stopped people pinching electric tools from the mines because they wouldn't work. So that power station was closed many years ago. The Galena Street power station was closed many years ago. They're dependent upon power coming up the line from Victoria, and that power then is distributed around to some of the surrounding stations and hamlets. Places like Menindee and Topar, they've got their own power systems. They've got their own diesel generators. So it's showing what we already know about this country is that our infrastructure is very, very fragile. Our road systems are deteriorating. We have about 3 weeks of diesel in this country. Our seaways are exposed. We're in a very, very vulnerable and fragile situation.
And it's an interesting subject, because I looked at the AEMO website this morning, the widget, which told us where our electricity was coming from this morning. And for all the hoopla and energy that we're putting into creating renewables, the reality was this morning, even in South Australia, the only exception to this was Tasmania, because they have hydroelectricity, which is very efficient over there, I might add. The reality is that Australia was running on fossil fuels. Now,
it does all the time.
And the reality of that is that we have a reliable power source which is available to us 24/7, 365 days a year, whereas renewables do not provide that reliability.
Well,
doesn't matter what the government says or Bowen says, they just aren't reliable.
Why is the government deliberately creating this mischief?
Well, it's an ideological stance they've taken. The second thing is that the union super funds have a very large investment in wind and solar. And the third thing is that governments of both colours have created the opportunity for the white shoe brigade to come in and benefit of subsidies. Now, the only thing renewable about renewable energy are the subsidies. They just keep coming. Now, we once had the very cheap and reliable energy in Australia. Victoria once had the cheapest energy in the world with its brown coal. We have thousands of years of coal, thousands of years of gas and millions of years of uranium, yet we are reticent to use them.
But it's insane.
Of course it's insane. And we have now a government that's putting us in a very, very dangerous strategic position. I was at the ARC conference in Sydney on Tuesday. Presenting a talk there was Gerard Holland, who is Executive Director of the Page Foundation. And they'd done a big economic analysis of the various costs of electricity. And they costed out nuclear. And when you look at all the costs, the total costs, nuclear is very cheap. Coal is cheaper. Gas is a little bit more expensive. But the most expensive by a country mile was, in fact, wind and solar. And then he added to that a number of other factors. The first thing is that wind and solar have a life of less than 20 years, whereas a nuclear power station will have at least 60 years. You'll get at least 40 years out of gas and maybe at least 50 years out of coal. So you've got long-term energy. The second thing is you've got the reliability, as we just heard. Yeah. And the third thing is that at 3 o'clock in the morning, if you're trying to keep your stock cool in a supermarket or trying to keep your household fridge going, you need baseload power. And the baseload power we have in this country comes from fossil fuels. We could have a little bit of power from hydro, but we are not a very alpine country. We don't have a high rainfall, and that's basically an emergency backup, which we use in peak load. So we have made some absolutely fundamental ideological errors in this country, and the sooner we go nuclear, the better.
And we keep electing them.
And look, I think a fundamental is honesty in government. And when the government pretends to want to be honest and they want to create a misinformation and disinformation legislation environment, they are the most dishonest and unreliable in terms of giving information. And Daniel Westerman, who's the chief of AEMO, who monitors where our power is coming from, was before a Senate committee, and he was being questioned by one of the national candidates, or not candidates, elected members from Queensland. And Daniel Westerman was asked the question, can you guarantee that the electricity will be cheaper? Because the government has been telling us we are going to be eventually getting cheaper electricity. Well, he said there's no guarantee about that. So there's a guy who's in the hot seat knowing exactly the data and where the information's coming from and completely dispelling the government's false narrative.
Yeah. Hello.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Yes, John, how are you?
Not bad. It sounded like Les in the background.
Oh, that's me. That's me, John.
And Professor
Morning, Les.
Plimer.
Good morning to you.
Morning.
Now, I've got just a couple of quick things and then I'll be out of your space. The first one I'm going to raise. My wife went shopping to Coles here the other day, Wednesday it was, and the previous week she'd bought a thing called Buller Splits, which is like an ice cream with ice around it. $4.50 for the 10, right? And there are various fruit flavours. Goes there on Wednesday, $9.
How much was it before?
The week prior, as a special, $4.50.
$4.50.
And then this Wednesday, $9.
Wow.
That's called inflation. And when the government gives you an official inflation figure, it's actually a basket of groceries, and they're the normal things that we don't use. And I'm sure your ice cream is not in that basket, which is used to calculate inflation. And anyone who does the shopping, and I do it in our household, I know I use cash only, but I know my wallet gets emptied very quickly now compared with a year or two ago. So that is, I think, something that's hurting the community, especially pensioners, especially people who might be on a low wage. And there are ways to solve this. Governments have done it in the past.
And John, our two monopolistic supermarkets, being Coles and Woolworths, have got us by the short and curlies, and they are creaming it.
Well, I don't go to Coles or Woolies. For example, if I want meat, I go to a local butcher. He's Italian, and I use the only thing that counts. I pay him in cash.
Well, he would appreciate that.
I also do, because he lowers the price.
Yeah. Thanks.
John, you need to go to Aldi.
Yes. Well, the thing is, I think the ACCC ought to have a look at the specials of 1 week, and then they ought to check the prices the following week on these two duopolies and just see what they're doing to the general public.
John, the ACCC is like a toothless tiger. I mean, how many convictions and how many times do they take these matters to and even the federal government has, rattled the sabre, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah. Now, I've got to talk about my second thing. This got me. I have a man pick up a bale from me, for your greens. And we're just having a general discussion in the driveway. He's been dealing with one particular company where he dumps his greens each week. And he got an email advising him that from the 1st of July, rates had gone up by $30 a tonne. And they wanted back pay. What? And he told them, see you later. He said that's...
What do you mean back pay? What do you mean by back pay?
They wanted him to pay from today's date back to the 1st of July.
Retrospective payment for... What was the excuse for bumping it up $30? What suddenly happened to cause
cost of living, Jeremy.
Cost of living? Oh,
yeah. Now, do you want to have a listen to this? He's no fool, this man. He said, well, your vehicles down here that operate in this yard where we dump the greens, he said, they run on diesel the same as me, and diesel's gone down in price. He said, so where's your cost of living? And then they came back with a smart answer. It's to do with the machinery. But let me tell you what the price is per tonne to what it is now. When he was dumping it back before July, if you like, $263 a tonne to dump his greens.
Well, that just encourages people to dump on the roadside.
And it's now gone up to $293 a tonne. And he's had to put an increase to all his customers. He absorbed the first one when they put it. They usually put up about $10 every year. And he said, there's nothing for it. He said, that's just the fee to take it to the yard. And what this company does, they turn it into compost, bag it, and then sell it for... compost. Talk about double dipping.
Thank you, John.
No worries. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Cheers. Bless you. I don't know, Professor, if you've heard, it's going back to the energy thing, the CHOGM meeting of all of the heads of the Commonwealth in Samoa. They are now, I take it's sort of the island people. They are shaking down the Commonwealth. It's a shakedown, an honest-to-goodness shakedown. They are saying Australia and Canada and Great Britain, between us, we are responsible for 60% of global warming. 60%. And they have said they want us to cancel our fossil fuel industries. Stop and stop it now. And I heard that the head of the UN was catastrophizing again this morning on the national broadcaster, saying that we have to stop coal, we have to stop gas, we have to stop all of this. The idea is that we become a third world country and we save the planet.
Well, I think the first thing to do is to let them know reality. They are dependent upon diesel from New Zealand and Australia to keep their power systems going. So we'll stop fossil fuel. We won't have any diesel go there. They're dependent upon imports from shipping. So we'll stop all the shipping because the ships...
But do we have anybody over there in Samoa prepared to say this?
Of course not.
No.
Of course not. And the third thing is the economy is dependent upon tourism. We just stop the flights. Well, it's fine. They can go back to what they were 300 years ago, be an isolated Pacific island. And I think that's the only way to behave. I think we've got to say, well, your actions have consequences. Yeah. These are the consequences.
Yeah, it'd be very simple to try and get them to join the dots. But there they are, catastrophizing in their own little way, saying, you don't understand. There you are, profiting from these industries. And here we are about to lose our economy, our island is going to sink, etc., etc. Professor, how could it be that the water is coming up around Fiji and not around Port Adelaide?
In 1833, Charles Lyell put out a book, Principles of Geology, and he argued that Pacific Island volcanoes were sinking and the atoll growing on top of them kept growing. Now, that fascinated Charles Darwin in The Voyage of the Beagle, and he evaluated Tuvalu and suggested that, in fact, as the coral atoll grows, it widens while the volcano is sinking. Now, that was tested by Professor Sir Edgeworth David in 1896 to 1899, partially paid for by the New South Wales government, to drill a couple of holes on Tuvalu. Mm-hmm. And they drilled to 1,042 feet of coral and didn't hit the volcano underneath, which supported the idea of Darwin. And then when the Pacific Island atomic tests were planned, drill holes were in the Marshall Islands, the Bikini Islands, etc., and these went down kilometres before they hit the basalt volcano that had been subsiding. So, in fact, that is the exact opposite of what we're being told by the islanders. The second thing is a study out of Auckland University looked at some 1,500 atolls in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, including those of the island atoll nations, and showed that almost all of these were increasing in area and the islands were not getting inundated. And the only reason there was inundation was that some of the coralline material had been quarried for road base, for cement, and for the foundations for airstrips. So the islanders are in for a money grab. They're not looking at history. They're not looking at what we know from science. And they just should be told to wake up to themselves. Now, I think there's a very, very good reason why we should be sympathetic to some of the islanders, those from Samoa and Tonga, etc. And we should say, well, look, you chaps are going to be inundated. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take all your sprightly, strong young men and we'll train them up in schools in Brisbane and in Sydney to be prize rugby players. And by that way, Australia might again become a better rugby nation. It's number 10 on the list now. If we have that system of essentially blackbirding, then we should become a strong rugby nation again.
Yeah, look, lateral thinking. I like the way you do that.
And can I add a comment here about sensibility and common sense and the prosecution of an argument? I mean, we know the Greens and the UN and all the lobby groups want to get rid of fossil fuels.
Why?
Well, because let's not go there, but they want to get rid of it. That's the fact. What they have never, ever come up with in their argument so far to date is that all the products that come from fossil fuels, and let me just name one, and what is the solution to this? The roads are paved with tar and bitumen, which are genuine products of the fossil fuel industry. There's never, ever been, to my knowledge, a comment made that we should replace all our bitumen and tar roads with another product. And if you were going to do that, what would that other product be? I mean, we're replacing petrol and diesel with EVs. We're replacing coal-fired with wind turbines. We're replacing with solar panels. But what do we replace our roads with?
Well, there are about 6,000 products we use in our daily life that come from fossil fuels. And I read with amusement a group, Doctors Against Fossil Fuels. And I thought, well, these people are absolutely pig ignorant, because most of the medicines we use come from fossil fuels. The syringes, the plastic tubing, that all comes from fossil fuels. How could you run a hospital or a medical practice without fossil fuels? So these people, I think, are having emotion overrule data. And this is what the situation is in the modern world. Emotion rules. Now, in the case of the Pacific Island nations, they can see that we're mugs, and they're saying, well, give us some money.
But what are they going to do with the money? What is the connection? What's the connection between us giving them money and they're saving their island?
Well, it allows you to drink more kava and just let the days drift by. Dreadful stuff. It's like, I don't know if any of the listeners have drunk it. It's like drinking dishwater, which slightly anaesthetises the tongue. It's horrible stuff.
Terrible stuff.
The bad guys are Australia, Canada, and Great Britain. None of their disdain is aimed at China. They never say anything about India.
Well, the thing is wrong. 60% of the emissions, it's wrong. The second thing is the logic is wrong. No one has ever yet shown that human emissions drive climate change. And the third thing is...
And nobody will stand up to them and say that.
No one will do it. Well, you can't do it in this country. Except the odd... a person from Queensland in the upper house, and I'm thinking of Matt Canavan, who told me the other day he's a listener to this program.
Oh, bless him.
You have Queensland royalty listening. But very, very few people will actually speak the truth. And we're being now, with this misinformation and disinformation, encouraging young people to not speak the truth and to tell them that if you don't speak the truth, that's the way ahead in life. Now, we're already putting the bricks in the wall with that, with simple matters like the gas of life, carbon dioxide. It's never been shown that it drives global warming. And I can show you that it doesn't. And a geological past shows that time and time and time again.
But how do you argue with a closed mind?
Well, you can't, because if people get themselves into a position by not using data, you can't use data to get them out of that position. It's just not possible. And this is why the only solution is an economic solution.
And look, it comes, talking about the economy, it comes back to presenting the data as the data should be presented, and for the government to be truthful. During COVID, businesses obviously couldn't function the way they normally did. They couldn't pay their taxes. So the ATO deferred tax payments, and there's now a $50 billion deferment. That's a lot of dough that still has to be paid back to the Australian system to run our infrastructure. During the last 12 months, if we look talking about the economy and analysing government performance, the Labor government performance under Anthony Albanese, there's been record business closures to the tune of 11,000 across Australia. And off the 11,000, 3,000 are builders. Now, there's a government who wants to build more accommodation for people, in Australians who don't have a roof over their heads, let alone the immigration that we don't need, because they need a roof over their head as well. With 3,000 builders going bust, what are we creating here? Now, that's the sort of data that the Australian public needs in their hands to make a decision when the next federal budget is delivered, and also the next federal election, because this government doesn't deserve to be in government. The way they're leading us, and Jim Chalmers very readily says how good he is and how good our country's going, but we are now the second on the list of highest inflation on the planet, only second to Slovakia of all countries, for God's sake.
And we have huge debt. This is federal debt and state debt. In Victoria, the debt is frightening. Queensland's going the same way, although as a South Australian, I was a beneficiary of this. I got the train from Queensland, from Brisbane Central Station out to Cleveland, which is the end of the line. It's about an hour and a quarter train trip. Cost me 50 cents. I thought, well, this is sending Queensland broke. I'm quite happy to pay whatever it was, $12 or $15 to do it, but it was 50 cents.
And we'll see what Queenslanders think of that on Saturday night.
Well, I think they're both promising the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And once you have given a dog a bone, you can't take it away. So that's there for a long time.
And that's our Pacific Islanders. So we've been giving the dogs the bone. I'm not calling them dogs, but we've been treating them well and our neighbours well. And we treat China very well. And look at the way China's quite happy to land-based us for our treatment of refugees, for God's sake. They're the ones rattling the sabre against Taiwan. They're the ones invading the South China Sea. Yeah. They're the ones controlling Australia, taking all our good shellfish and wine, etc., etc. It's about time Australia start to stand up for itself, I think.
Well, to me, the insanity is that this government looks us square in the eye and says, no, we'll go on mining our coal and selling it to China, who will, of course, allow it to benefit the people and their industry and their standard of living and all the rest of it. They can take the benefit of our natural resource of coal, but you can't. Yeah.
Well, it's worse. Chinese manufacturers materials which we buy. So we're paying for the value added instead of adding the value ourselves. Mm-hmm. And it's a very, very fragile position we put ourselves in. Now, we do not have a manufacturing industry any longer in this country. I have reservations about living off digging holes in the ground and harvesting grain every year from the same patch of ground. But that's where we put ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, boy. You heard about these forever chemicals,
yes.
Stuff like PFAS.
Yes.
They say it's in the water system in Sydney, the drinking water system. Now, I don't know that there's any conclusion as to how dangerous that is. It might be in just tiny, minute proportions.
We're having the current government introduce huge tonnages of forever chemicals in the blades of wind turbines. And these forever chemicals are banned in most Western countries. These forever chemicals stay in the soil, stay in the waterways. So I think the government's got to get its house in order. There are forever chemicals, and we know that many of them come off turbine blades, others come off solar panels. So the government's got to get its own house in order before they start pointing their bone at other people. We do have some forever chemicals, which are very, very hard to break down, but we've seen over very long periods of time, and forever's not forever, and we do break these down. But in the life of humans, these are chemicals which are sitting there for a long time.
And look, often governments will only react to the situation when the problem is immense. It's like the chlorofluorocarbons that were used as propellants in aerosol cans. It was only when the ozone layer was noted to be deteriorating that they actually did something about it. I mean, they would have known, but they let it get to a crisis position before they did something about it. And that's what it's all about nowadays. Governments run crisis management.
However, with CFCs and the Montreal Accord, we now know from the past that there are cycles of chlorofluorocarbons in the atmosphere, that there are some volcanoes in polar areas that put out a lot of fluorine gases and chlorine and bromine gases. Mount Erebus is a very good example. We also know that sea spray that sits on ice is broken down by ultraviolet energy from sunlight, and so we get chlorine compounds in the atmosphere. So it's not a simple case of human CFCs creating an ozone hole. It may well be that we have a cyclical ozone hole, and this is related to other processes, especially volcanicity.
Yeah. Professor, can you stay with us for a while?
A little while.
A little while? Good. I want to have a talk to Professor Daniel Gray from the Walter and Eliza Hall Institute. He's been doing work on this theory relating, I suppose, to apes. I don't know. You know how an ape will pound its chest?
Yes.
It is possible that this...
Some women do that as well.
I've noticed that. that what they're doing is to thump their thymus.
I saw that on Monday.
Which does...
in Parliament.
Oh, that too, yeah. Which does something to the immune system. Because you whack your...
Yeah, thymus thump.
Yeah. We'll do that. We'll see.